Greetings everybody, it's Rob and I'm back with another monster discussion video for Pathfinder 2nd edition, and this time I'm going with the Hound of Tindalos, a different creature than some of the other ones I've done. I've done a big centipede, I've done an undead knight. Now we're going back to a creepy beast, an aberration, and more importantly a creature that has connections to stuff outside of just Pathfinder lore. The Hound of Tindalos is commonly thought of as a creature that comes from the dimension of time, and it is seen in some Lovecraftian lore books as kind of this essentially time hunting dog, like a time hellhound almost, that hunts you down. In Pathfinder, the hounds are CR7 creatures, so they're not super high level. There are higher level versions of them out there, but the standard Hound of Tindalos is a CR7 creature. Decent stats, does have resistances to mental, physical, and poison. It also has an interesting ability that kind of anybody who tries to do a mental effect to it actually ends up taking mental damage back. So essentially trying to probe its mind can actually damage your mind. The main things about the Hound of Tindalos is the rather like otherworldly gaze, the stare it has that actually makes you almost think you're being attacked or slashed when you're nearby it. So it does have a decent aura. At level 7, it can do some decent damage if you sit in it for too long and don't really prepare for it, or if you keep failing your save. In terms of attacks, it's a pretty standard beast. It has jaws and claws, nothing special there. The main thing it does have is the angle entry abilities. Essentially, a Hound of Tindalos has the ability to teleport between right angles, or any acute angles, really. So essentially, it can, if it's next to a right angle in a room, it can teleport to another space that has a similar angle. This is a one-cost action, and it's a pretty quick thing it can do. Now, what's interesting about this ability is it allows it to really move around the room and get very versatile with how it can move around. Now, any room that has a 90-degree angle, it can technically get to, as long as it suffices the angle requirement. Now, the reason I talk about this is because there's some interesting things you can do with these hounds, and this is why I wanted to talk about these creatures for this video. Now, before I go on to that discussion about what you can do with this creature, I want to tell you guys, if you guys are interested, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. It will help me a lot, as well as like this video while you're here hanging out with me, talking about different monsters and kind of figuring out all the different creatures that you could use in your very own games. Much appreciated. Thank you guys. Now, the Hound of Tindalos is interesting because it is a very versatile creature in ways you can do it. Since the creature itself isn't that terrifying in terms of a damage output, you can put 2 or 3 of them in an encounter and it not be too bad. It even says in their lore they kind of hunt in packs. You know, one will scout out, the other ones will kind of come in after it. This is shown in the Hound spell list that the Hound has an 8th level discern location, and it's a CR7 creature, so that's a pretty high spell level at that level. So if they need to hunt somebody down, they're going to try and find them. On top of that, they have haste, slow, and invisibility. So they can be quickened, and they can be invisible, and then they can just start coming out from all different right angles and corners at your party. So they're a very good, scary creature to throw at your party. On top of that, what makes them interesting again is that angled entry I talked about. I've seen this in some old Pathfinder 1E adventures, where if you want to trap a Hound of Tindalos, you can essentially shave the walls, basically. So if you curve the walls where the wall hits the floor or the ceiling or like the corners of the room, if they're all curved off and there's no actual right angles in the room, the Hound A can't teleport, and B actually gets weakened because it's not in that angled space. It does say in the stat block, this is my own caveat, that if it's not adjacent to the angle, it suffers the weakness. I'm gonna say, in my my personal opinion, if it's in a room that doesn't have one, I would apply the sickness to it. I feel like if you have to keep it so it has to stay by the wall, that's a bit of a weird, like, debuff to itself. As long as it's like close enough to some sort of an angle, and the angle can be anything. It even talks about in the stat block a tree growing out from the ground, a tree and the floor. That's an angle right here. It can teleport out of a tree, so it can be outside as well. It doesn't have to be stuck to just an inside, dungeon room. It can be outside as well, as long as there's things that create the angle. Now, the art for this creature is really, really cool, and there's been a few different versions of it. I'm sure you can either use ones from like the Arkham Horror files or from Pathfinder 1E, 2E, etc. It's usually this like very shadowy, almost like ghastly like hound that really sometimes also has this like weird elongated body and kind of very not really any fur on it, and it really plays to when these creatures come out that they look scary, they look intimidating, they're trying to scare the party, and that's a good way to use these. I'll be honest, in some of the adventure paths that I've seen these creatures used, they're generally just hanging out in a room, maybe as bodyguards, maybe as just kind of trapped in a room. I would like to see in more encounters in adventure paths or in your own, use them for what they're supposed to be. Use them as hunters. Have them hunt down the party. Have these hounds like just out of the player's reach or player's eyes, they see this like strange, like ghastly, shadowy dog thing kind of like prowling, kind of tracking them. That would be more intimidating than just a room full of these creatures. And then as they eventually get ambushed at some point by these essentially time dogs, and that would be a crazy encounter. There's no reason that you have to have them just be stuck in a room and stuck doing one thing. I would not have one of these on their own. They are not that strong on their own. There's nothing special about them. They can probably easily be taken out with any decent effort. But a pack mentality of them, having a bunch of them that are invisible or hasted, that can kind of fly over, kind of like fly, but they do fly. I did not mention that at all. These hounds can fly. So everything I just mentioned about them tracking or hunting down your party, they can do that while flying. Now that takes up to another level completely. If you have like these hounds flying through the air, that I might say, if they're out in the open, the vulnerable to curve space may potentially affect them. That's again GM's call, how you want to rule that one. That being said, the Hound of Tindalos is, to me, another great creature to use in Pathfinder 2E. They are spooky. They've never really been terrifying in terms of like potential super threat, but they have enough of a scary look to them, scary vibe to them. The aura, the teleportation, all that stuff makes them scary, that if your players don't know what they are, that your players might get a bit creeped out by that. And that's kind of the feeling you're going for. You're going for that uneasy, I don't know what this is, but I don't think it's good. If you can pull that off, that's what we're going for. Have you used the Hound of Tindalos in your game? I would love to know if you guys have. Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, as I said before, be sure to like this video. It would be much appreciated and helpful to the great YouTube overlords that we have. Thank you for watching this third video in our monster discussion. I hope you guys are enjoying these little GM monster talks, talking about various monsters in Pathfinder and how they can be used, and just deeper dive into some of the creatures that usually don't get as much love as some of the more mainstream creatures. Thank you guys.